himself. The Macau County Sheriff's Detachment in Deception Cove sat in a squat one-story building at the foot of Main Street, overlooking the government wharf and the little harbor beyond, the open strait beyond that, and Canada beyond all. Main Street was quiet, and there were a couple of vehicles parked in front of the detachment, a Macau County SUV and a black two-door Chevy Blazer. Cable parked beside the Blazer and rolled down the windows part way for the boy, told him he'd be right back, and don't try and wander off anywhere. A young Macau man in a deputy's uniform that might still have had the tags on it sat at the desk inside the detachment doors. Cable recognized him as Lily Monk's boy, Paul, and wondered at how the child had grown up so fast. Although maybe Paul hadn't quite fully grown yet. The rookie deputy blanched as Cable explained the situation, barely waiting for Cable to finish before he craned his neck toward the rear of the detachment and called out Jess Winslow's name. Cable watched Jess come out of a private office in the back and figured it was probably better that she take a look at the body anyway. Figured Paul Monk could probably use a little more breaking in before he had to deal with this kind of thing. Jess looked healthier than the last time he'd seen her, before all the trouble with Deputy Kirby Harwood and his buddies. She'd put on some weight, like she'd finally remembered to eat something now and then, and she didn't look quite so pale, so haunted in the eyes. She listened to Cable, squared her shoulders and nodded, dug in her pocket for her keys, and told Monk to call the county coroner and tell her to meet Jess at Shipwreck Point. Monk picked up the phone as Cable turned to walk out to the vehicles and his grandson, and Jess looked back toward the private office and gave a whistle. Shortly, Cable heard a chain jangle and some kind of shake, and then the black and white dog ambled out of the office, 60-odd pounds of pit mix and muscle, stretching and blinking like she'd just woken up from a nap. "Come on, Lucy," Jess called. And the dog shook herself one more time and walked over lazily. Jess clipped a lead on her and told her she was good, and then she straightened and met Cable's eyes. "We'll follow you out there, okay?" Cable watched the deputy in the rearview mirror of his truck as he led her county cruiser back out toward Shipwreck Point. He'd forgotten about Lucy the dog, some kind of rescue. A companion animal, he'd heard, prescribed by the VA docs to help Jess deal with what she'd been through overseas. Cable looked at the dog, tongue lolling out the passenger window, enjoying the sunshine and the spring air, and wondered if he ought to have driven the extra few miles into Nia Bay, talked to the sheriff himself. Wondered if another body might not send Jess Winslow back to the dark places. Whatever she'd endured as a Marine that had scarred her so bad. But he remembered how she'd been in the middle of the trouble with Deputy Kirby Harwood, how the dog had been there too. If she'd come through that strong enough that the new sheriff saw fit to deputize her, well, hell. Maybe that dog was just her good buddy at this point, and not some kind of mental health necessity. The parking lot at Shipwreck Point was still deserted, and Cable parked his truck where he'd parked it before, killed the engine, and climbed out and stood beside his door and watched as Jess pulled the cruiser in beside him. She got out of the cruiser, and the dog tried to follow, but Jess closed the door first, circled around to Cable's side, and Cable pointed through the trees and back east toward Deception Cove. "A couple 100 yards that way," he told her. "You can't miss it. If it's all right with you, I'll stay here with my grandson." Jess looked past him at the boy in his car seat in the back of the truck, and her mouth twitched, and she nodded. "You'll tell the coroner where to find me when she gets here?" she said. "I will," Cable said. "Are you going to need me to give a statement?" She shrugged. "Not sure yet." Then she looked out through the trees and toward the water. "You get any sense who it might be?" "Didn't get close enough to tell," Cable said. "I didn't really want the boy to see any more than he already had."